No. I have like all the, I'm getting clothes. I went and bought a bunch of clothes yesterday because for the year, everything I have is black pants, black shirts, you know, it's just not really business attire, I guess. So I was like, oh, I'm glad I asked that question because it would have been. I don't know, I asked and they said business attire, so I was like, oh, yeah. Said a whole lot of t-shirts.
Oh, t-shirts.
Yeah, and I was like, that's kind of homework.
I have a bunch of t-shirts and some hard red t-shirts.
And I have to get a lunchbox. I was like, for your lunch, I was like, oh.
Yeah, they're gonna fit big on their feet is my thing.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah. And then Tuesday, I've been doing this, we've been doing this, it has many names, but the last name I heard that he heard is the Army. And we do it for 3 days and then we all do it. And so today,
Hey, I tried again. Can you hear me this time?
yeah, so I was thinking.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
In 3 days.
So I can talk on here, and I'll hear you through there.
Does that work? Does that work? Does that work? Okay. We'll see how this goes.
What the reality that's going to work out. Maybe have a brain power. I'm a little concerned about it. Because I need to have a conversation about these problems. It's kind of nervous. Yeah, one year in the whole first week, yes. 2 weeks. Okay.
The last 4 years. I mean,
Lennon, did that work?
Right.
Mom, how are you?
You can try your best.
How did your trip go?
Pretty good. We went to the zoo last Thursday on another field trip too, which was nice. And then I've been our cooking work was good.
yeah, that's what this one.
Learned a lot.
I'm sorry, it's another chair.
Can you hear us? I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh my gosh, my birthday.
Well,
Plenty to celebrate. Yesterday was Elizabeth's birthday. Tomorrow's Jason's birthday.
Celebrate
birthday. Yeah. Your old children girl.
Oh yeah. I remember most of those years. Okay, so I'll be trying to fix that in a minute. While I get started with that, I'll go ahead and we have 3 materials with you today. Today's session is probably going to be the most dense, just of all the ones that we've done. This is we're really going to dive into some stuff about the part of our day and the academics and curriculum that we have. So I hate doing this, but I think sometimes the easiest way is just to print off the slides, just so you guys have all the information that you need, and you can take notes off to the side. So I'll go ahead and start with the first one, which is a quick do now for you. That's super fun. Sorry. You just want to think about really quickly, just think about you as a student and then also you as a teacher. What was your favorite subject as a student in school and why? And then what do you think has been, or if you haven't taught before, what you think will be your favorite subject to teach when you think of all the different ones? Why do you think that? Right. just take a couple minutes while I try to solve this. Huh? Jeez, I was trying to downsize to just 2 computers today, but apparently it's not going to work. Okay, let's see. Oh, man, that's really delayed. So annoying. Like a sound you hear in your nightmares. Hold on. Hey, can you hear me this time?
Yeah, you hear me?
Yes, okay. So I'm trying it on a different computer and that sounds much better. Yay, okay. You're a little bit smaller on the screen, but it's okay. I know. All right. So we're completing our do now part, which is on the front screen. Hopefully you can still see it. So. Yeah.
I'm in charge of you, so I'll be tilting you around. You can see the screen. You're good. Okay, perfect.
Before we get started with our sharing of this, we do have a new person that's joined us today. So I want to give Joy a chance to introduce herself. And then if you just want to go in really quickly and just tell quickly just your name and just maybe just a quick background on what you've been doing this year leading up to our school year next year.
Okay, I am Joy Green. I currently teach kindergarten with my lovely co-worker here at Andrew Academy, not too far away. And you know Krista Jones? Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So that's it. I'll be here for a kindergarten school.
So I'm Jason. You've already met me. I'm a teacher this year. I'm an instructional coach for the school. It's great to interview with you. I'm really excited to have you as part of our team. Welcome. Anyone else want to
I'm sure. I'm Elizabeth Moore. I'm going to be teaching in the first grade next year. And then I think for the last 15 years I've been a restaurant owner, so I'm completely different change things.
You don't know me.
No, I'm Kylie. I teach first grade currently. First grade again next year.
I'm Charity, and as of May 22nd, I no longer work for the individual. And I will be teaching kindergarten.
Okay, good.
We go way back.
All right.
And this is
Oh yeah, sorry. Carolina, go ahead. I forgot.
this is virtual Glenna.
I'll teach first grade next year.
Hello. Virtual Glenna.
Yes, she says hi. All right, so to start with, just quickly share, what was your favorite subject when you were a student? Why do you think that is? And then think about your lens as a teacher. What do you think you're going to get most into teaching when you're in front of students every day?
I said my favorite subject was reading. Anything to do with reading. I ate it up. And it translates very clearly because my favorite thing to teach is read aloud or guided reading when we read in small groups. I just love seeing the connections they make and just how they get excited for just books and are just hungry to read. And it's pretty clear why that is, because that's what I get the most excited about. It's one of the reasons they probably get the most excited about it.
I said my favorite subject was math, and that was because it was one of my best subjects. And then my teacher was great, Mrs. King. I loved it. And then I said I'll be excited about teaching math or reading because I love to read as well. But because I also love the excitement that the kiddos have when they put themselves in the story. And when I did my several teaching, it was great.
Well, I also said math, and I didn't realize that both mine were math. I said I felt really amazed and smart when I completed work independently. When I did that in math, in school when I was younger. And then I wrote math/writing, really it's both of them for kinders. So we just have a wide range of lessons that can be taught so many different ways. So I was singing and dancing and moving, so math.
I said that towards the end of school, reading or ELN is definitely my favorite, because it came naturally to me, and I just really enjoyed it. But math is probably my favorite to teach, because I think they can see immediate results. And I think that when something's so concrete that it they get excited because that worked. And I think it's really oftentimes it's pretty easy to pinpoint why they're not getting it. More so than it is for me to pinpoint why they're not understanding something in the reading. I guess that is kind of the opposite of what everyone's done.
I took it all the way back to kindergarten because I was thinking about when I very first went to school. And I guess, going to preschool, you kind of have a little bit of, knowledge of, adding things and letters and things. So my favorite subject was French because I went to school and they taught that from the get-go. And it was totally new to me, and I just thought it was very mysterious.
It's funny because I hated reading when I was younger, and now that I'm older, I love it a lot. But if you were to ask me as a student, I would have never picked reading at all. I probably would have picked I really liked social studies a lot, and that's actually what I went to school for, was to be a social studies teacher. But my favorite thing I think to teach now is writing, just because I think it's the easiest way to kind of get inside a kid's mind and to see their creativity. And when you think about just the type of work that students produce, you just see such a tremendous amount of growth in a student every single year. So just this year, I know in kindergarten, just watching them from being not even able to write their names, now they're writing multiple sentences. We're doing right now we're doing how-to books, so they're teaching us how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something like that right now. It's just really cool to see it. And just it's a chance for the kids to really just shine with their personality. So that's something I really enjoy teaching that I've taught the past few years. So good. I'm glad to hear that we have a variety of stuff. So we have some math people, we have some reading people, we have weird social studies people like me. So it's nice that we have a good variety going into the year. So this is going to be our objectives, our agenda for today. Like I said, today's kind of our meatiest session that we have. We're going to really dive into a lot of the details about how our school is set up in terms of academics. We'll talk about the different parts of the day. We'll actually get to talk a little about some of the draft schedule that we'll have for next year, so you can kind of see what we're thinking right now, what the components might be. And then we'll kind of get to end the day talking about some of the ways that you'll be supported as a teacher here at KIPP, and what you can expect. So we have two objectives. The first one says founders will have a general understanding of the academic components of each day for our students. That's kind of the what we're going through. Can I have someone read for me the how? Some brave soul.
Founders will be able to describe what to expect for planning, execution, and support prior to the start of school and during the school year.
Yeah, and that tells us how we're going to get there this year. So this year, when we think about the priorities we had in our founding year, they basically focused around four main areas or buckets. And so we were focusing on strong character development for our students. We were focusing on developing parents as partners and having that community link. We are focusing on making sure we have strong staff development, that our staff members are growing as both professionals and also just as people. And then we're focusing this year on really targeted instruction. So making sure that the instruction that we're giving our kids is meeting them exactly where they are. So it's not just like a one size fits all, but really just getting in deep with our kids and figuring out where are they at, what do they need, and really targeting that instruction to meet those needs. And so today, when we talk about academic components, that's going to kind of link up here with this priority we had for this year. And this will carry over into next year as well. And we'll be excited to share some of our priorities for next year as we finalize them in the next few days. So that's kind of where we are in terms of big picture. One of the things I always like to start with when we talk about academics and the focus of our day is always, how do we measure this? At the end of the day, as a teacher, you want to know, how are your kids going to be assessed as readers, as writers, and all of those different things, and how are we growing as a school? And so I just wanted to quickly just talk to you really quickly about one major measurement that we use for reading, which is called the STEP assessment, which is fairly new. It's out of the University of Chicago, and it's something that a lot of KIPP schools all across the network are using. And so this is our main tool that we use to measure student growth in reading all the way through third grade. Basically, with the way it's set up is STEP tracks a student's development as a reader for all the way from pre-reading, so before they can actually read words or even sounds on a page, all the way up through by the time they're reading, if you know, like level books, P, Q, and R levels. And so our goal is each year our students are going to grow through these different STEP levels until eventually they get there to the end. With the way that STEP is set up, there's basically 3 STEP levels every year that a student should grow. So by the end of kindergarten, we would hope that a student would be at step 3. And that's telling them where they need to be going into step 4 in first grade. By the end of first grade, they're at step 6. By the time at the end of second grade, they should be at step 9. And then by the time hopefully they're exiting third grade, they would be at step 12. Since we are a college prep school and we want to make sure we're not just having our kids meet the bar, but actually passing it and getting them ready, we actually set an even more rigorous standard for our kids. So when we think about our kindergartners this year, our goal for them was to not end at step 3, but actually end the year at step 4, which means they're ending the year, our goal for them is they're ending the year actually partway through first grade in terms of their reading ability. Then the same would be true at the end of first grade, at the end of second grade, and then hopefully partway through their third grade, they're actually graduating from STEP because they've passed all of the levels. And so this is just one of the tools that we use. And just to tell you a little bit more about STEP, we have these 4 rounds of assessment that we give kids throughout the course of the year. We'll give them like a diagnostic or an initial at the beginning of the year just to see where they're coming in around August. That first actual official round of track growth will happen around November. We'll do like a round 3 in February, and we actually just finished our last round of STEP here, just yesterday, I guess. It's kind of crazy. But we're all done, and we're excited to start diving into all the data there and to see where our kids ended up. But hopefully we'll see a ton of growth between this initial round and step 4. One of the cool things about STEP is it's really a great way to lay out what you should be teaching your kids, because it gives you what are called bottom lines. In other words, at the end of each step level, your kids should be able to do these things. And so those are the things that you need to focus on as a teacher, because that's like developmentally what a reader should be doing. And so on the back, on your page today, one of the supplemental things that you've got has the step levels listed there, but then on the back side, it also has the bottom lines that you can kind of see there. So if you just want to take a minute to just look through it, if you want to take any notes or anything, and then we can kind of talk about what some of the step levels might mean there.
So sorry.
Oh, glad you got me again.
Thank you.
So when we talk about the different step levels, obviously one of the initial things just to learn as a reader is just learning that there are letters that are on a page, and those letters make sounds. And when you put those letters together, they actually make something called words. You actually learn when you start to read, you're leading from left to right, from top to bottom. You know that you're going from one page, the left side of the page, to the right side, and so on. As you start to move through the step levels, though, you start to learn different strategies to help you. So if you look at, for example, step 2, like cross-checking is one of the big strategies that you have. So you'll know that when your students are trying to reach that level, that they might learn certain sight words that they'll just memorize that they know, like I see, but then they're looking for pictures to kind of help them as clues to figure out what the word might mean. So I see, they can look at the picture, oh, those are desks. So they're going to use the picture clues plus what they see on the page to help them. And then, as you probably know, like the books get harder and harder as they go through. So I think about our students now, some of them who are on step 4, who are reading like level E books. You'll notice that once you start to get on there with self-reliance, like they're going to get to things where there's going to be multiple words on a page and the books are getting longer. And so they have to start to think about what are some strategies I can use to help myself instead of having to pause every time and ask the teacher for help. And hopefully throughout the course of the year, you're teaching them these multiple word solving strategies so they can start to become independent readers. And the other big thing you'll notice with step 5, as we're starting to push even further, is just endurance. I see this really long book. It looks really long, but I'm not going to give up. I'm going to try my best to get through this whole thing without going insane or throwing a fit. Like I can actually do it, and I'm going to feel proud of myself. So that's something we're continuing to work on with a lot of our students now as we get towards the end of the year. But I just kind of wanted to start off with this because this is kind of the holy grail for us in terms of what we're measuring growth on. And so it's something that all of our teachers, we want to be very familiar with. And so I want to make sure even from day one, when we talk about academics, you see what the step levels are and you kind of know how we measure that growth. So, and we'll definitely talk more about this as we get into the staff onboarding in more depth later this summer. But I just want to give this to you now. It also is part of the email I sent out to you, so you can always refer back to it if you wanted to read through it more from some of the bottom lines. We also use map testing, which is a national test. NWEA map testing basically asks students different questions on their level, and it's what we call like a Goldilocks test. So if they get asked a question, that question is too hard, it'll give them a question that's a little bit easier. If they get that question right, the next question will be a little bit harder. And it'll ask them approximately like a little over 50 questions until eventually it finds exactly where that level is, and then it gives them a score. And it takes that score and it compares it to other students all across the country. And then we kind of figure out where is this student at in terms of other kindergartners that they're being tested to. So that's another test that we use for reading, but also that's our main math measure. And so when you see map up here, that's what this is referring to. And we'll definitely talk more about map 2 in depth. I didn't want to go too much into it today because it's going to be overwhelming sometimes when you look at all the numbers and things, but that's just a quick way to start. So when we think about our goals for this year, this was kind of very high, very rigorous goals that we have for ourselves. So when we think about where we wanted our students to end at the end of the year on STEP, we wanted 85% of our students to be on that step 4, which you see on there. Most kindergartners would end the year on step 3, but we wanted 85% of our students to be on step 4. We wanted only 10% to be on step 3, which is where the average kindergartner would be. And then we wanted no more than 5% to be below step 3. Obviously, we don't have the exact results done yet because we just finished our tests. I will say, I don't know if we've quite met this really high bar that we have, so we might make some adjustments for next year, but it's definitely something that we're not giving up on. And that we definitely feel like our first grade teachers will have a very strong starting place for next year for most of them. And that's also true for math. So like 85% of our students are going to meet those tiered goals. So not just the average goal that the growth that's made, but actually pushing them even further towards college ready goals. And at least 85% of our students are at the 50th percentile or on grade level. And I do know that we are much closer here. Like we do have a lot of our students who are ending the year on math close to grade level, which is really cool to see. So this is kind of what we were shooting for this year. As we finish up our priorities and our goals for next year, we're definitely going to be sharing those with you. But I just kind of wanted you to see ahead of time what we were working towards this year. So when we think about all the components of our day that kind of match up to that, it basically divides into 3 different components. We have our literacy component, which is a huge focus of ours. It actually takes up the majority of our day. You can already tell there's tons of stuff over here. We also do math, obviously, and then we have some other things that kind of fill in throughout the day. So those are some of our enrichment classes. Those will be some of our science and social studies classes. And the same will be true for next year as we go in. So let's just kind of lays out for you very quickly just all the different components of our day and where they kind of fit into these 3 big buckets. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about each one of them. So when we think about balanced literacy, it actually has a lot of different components. And this is why I wanted to give you the little packet here today, even though I hate printing off all that stuff, but just so you can kind of see what we're talking about, you can always refer back to it. So Message Time Plus is a component of our literacy program that kind of starts each day. And this is where a teacher's going to be writing a morning message with support from students. And then they kind of use that morning message to practice some of the skills that they've been working on. So that could be identifying sight words for the day. It could be looking for words that have the AR, team, like bossy R team, or they could have vowel teams that are looking for in there. Or it could be, where do you see capital letters? Where do you see punctuation at the end? And so it's basically just a way to reinforce what you've been teaching in class just in an everyday setting. Like, this is just a message that we're reading, but we can always be practicing our phonics, all those different things in an everyday setting. So this will be happening every day towards the beginning of the day. It's only about 15 minutes, but it'll happen every morning. And the message can be very tailored depending on what your class is working on. So if you guys are working on grit for the day, or if you're getting ready to go on a field trip, write a message about that. If it's somebody's birthday and you want to write a special morning message about that, it just depends on whatever it is for the day. So this will be one of our components that we have. It's something you'll definitely get more development on in the summertime, but I just kind of wanted to show you this ahead of time and what it might look like on a daily basis. We are also, one of our big focuses this year was on vocabulary. So KIPP has done a lot of studies around vocabulary and has found that vocabulary and the word gap that we tend to see especially from children in low-income communities is huge. I actually got to be a part of this training this year and also part of last year, and one of the big numbers they always throw out is 3 million words. And so what they say is by the time your student actually gets into kindergarten or actually begins their public education, they already have a 3 million word deficit compared to other students that are going into more affluent areas. So those are 3 million less words that students have been exposed to. That already is a huge vocabulary gap that has to be caught up. And they've done like studies with SAT and ACT, and they actually see that one of the biggest barriers that students have to performing well on the SATs and ACTs isn't so much comprehension or knowledge, it's the vocabulary. So they see words they don't know and they have to end up guessing, and those guesses aren't always right. And so we were very focused on explicit instruction with our vocabulary. And so there's a man named Robert Marzano who kind of has studied this his entire life. And there's a 6-step method basically that he's developed that we use in our school every day to explicitly teach vocabulary words. And so usually what will happen with this 6-step method is you introduce the word, you kind of use it in context. So you kind of say it in a sentence, you show some examples through videos and pictures, and then throughout the week you practice different games and different activities with the kids to reinforce the word. So have them practicing talking and using the word with each other, having them practicing if it's a action or a verb, actually doing whatever it is, so they can just associate different things with the word. And then you're just periodically reinforcing that throughout the entire time. One cool thing that will happen next year with our vocabulary is it's going to be very much aligned to the different parts of reading and writing that we're doing. And so those vocabulary words aren't just going to be random words that are chosen. They're going to integrate right into what we're doing with reading and writing next year. So not only are you going to have time to practice it during vocabulary, but they'll also be using and applying those words they've learned during the reading time. So it's exciting. I'm excited about it. And then a big part of our day will be phonics and word study. So obviously, especially in kindergarten and first grade and these early grades, kids need to learn how to decode words and how to use word solving strategies to figure out what words are as they become like real readers, not just guessing and looking at pictures. So we use a lot of different things to help us throughout the day, but our big curriculum that we use for next year will be Foundations, which is it's by Wilson. And one thing I'll say that's really a strength of Foundations is the scripting and the progression that it has as you're starting from the very beginning level. So it's something that's very supportive of teachers. It's almost something you can just take like a turnkey and just go with it. And so it's something that I think will help us this year or going into next year, because this year we had something where it was more, we were trying to integrate a lot of different things and put it together, and it kind of got messy at times. But Foundations is very scripted. It's very laid out for you. And so it's something that you can kind of figure out where your kids are, pick that part of Foundations and use it. So it's something I'm really excited about. I was going to bring in a Foundations kit today, but
Can I add something?
yes.
We're also excited, we didn't do this year for phonics, but next year we'll be actually having kids split up across the grade level and be able to go to different classrooms based on where they are. So using our data from interims, using data from STEP to be able to really group students together and be able to push them even faster. So everyone will still be teaching foundations, but Elizabeth's group may be actually a pitch where Amber's in different cases. But since we're all using the same thing and we'll be aligned, we'll be able to do that. They're still learning the same stuff and eventually hopefully getting to the same level. But if students are ready, they're able to go at that much faster of a pace. And if students aren't quite there and need more at-bats and more practice, then they can have that. So that's something we're really excited about, specifically with foundations for next year.
So it'll be really cool because we'll be doing cross classroom grouping, which will be really awesome. We haven't done that before, so hopefully that will go well. And then another big component of our day is just our literacy rotations. So when we think about rotations, they're basically in 20-minute blocks where your students will be in one of three places in your classroom. They'll either be doing guided reading with the teacher at a table, so it's like small targeted instruction based on level of groups. We have a computer program they'll be using, which is tailored to their level, called iReady, which will be at small computer stations in your room. Or they'll have literacy centers, or there might be some choice reading that goes with that from your classroom library. So those are kind of the three different areas that your students will be at, and then they will rotate throughout your literacy rotation time. So to kind of go into a little bit more of those in depth, guided reading has been a huge focus of ours this year. We have this awesome guided reading library, which you can see, it's all around you. It's like 20,000 books or something like that. It's a crazy amount. I don't know how many, it's a lot. That's not much. Anyway, it was very expensive too. So yay, but it's awesome. But what guided reading we've really found is it's kind of like the bread and butter of teaching literacy. Like this is where you see the most growth from students happen during the course, this plus phonics, just because this is where you can really target kids with what they need when they need it. And so instead of just being just a random group of kids, like these are all kids on the same level and you're targeting them towards the same skills because they all need that skill. So it's very quick, it's very routine, but it's also something that kids come to appreciate because they're reading books that are at their instructional level. So these are books that kids with support can get through and can actually start to read by themselves. This isn't something that's way too hard. This isn't something they're gonna get bored with because they can fly through it really fast. And so we focus a lot this year with guided reading on just the routines of it and the structures. We focus a lot on how to choose books that are just right for readers. And so we'll be excited to kind of share some of the things we've learned from that with you this year. And then we've also focused a lot on just assessment and running records with kids. So just like keeping that formative assessment going and how are we tracking student growth and then the regrouping that happens with that. So you'll get to meet with your group. This says 5 days a week. It might not happen quite that much. It depends on, especially in kindergarten, how the groups are broken up between you and your co-teacher. And in first grade, obviously, it just depends on the sizing of the groups that we have and how many groups we have to make. But that would be like our pie in the sky vision. But definitely at least 3 days a week, you're meeting with your groups with guided reading. Then we also mentioned there's that individual practice that happens on the computer. So this is where the iReady program comes in. Basically, we start off the year every year with the kids taking this initial kind of diagnostic assessment to kind of see where the kids are. It kind of it'll rate them in the different categories like vocabulary and comprehension and all those different things. And then it starts to target these lessons for them based on what they need. And the cool thing about iReady is it does give them quizzes occasionally, like after they pass a certain number of levels. And then those quizzes are data that you can see to kind of track their mastery. It also just tells you how many lessons kids are completing, so you know if they're messing around. Like they've only completed one lesson and you see another kid that's completed 12. It's like, oh, I need to have a conversation with that kid. What's going on? And then the other thing cool that I think iReady is really smart in recognizing is sometimes kids can get kind of wore out if they're doing lesson after lesson after lesson. And so they can actually earn points if they've completed a lesson, and those points can build up to actually play like little brain break games. So after a while, they'll tell them they've earned enough to qualify for a game, and there might be like a little submarine game or something they have to play, and it's timed. It's only for a few minutes, but it's just a quick break for them before they get back. And so I know, especially for the teachers who've been tracking the progress of the students in iReady this year, it's been a big, like the students have really liked it a lot. And it does give you a lot of data as a teacher on where you see a lot of progress from your kids, and then where are kids still struggling, and that can also help you in your guided reading and also some of the other components too. And then the last part, like we said, was the actual centers that they'll be going to at their desks. These will be changing throughout the year, just depending on whatever it is we're focusing on as a school at that time. So, at the very beginning of the year, it might be more just letter identification or practicing writing your name or things like that. And then as the year goes on, you might see more practice. There might be some additional phonics stuff that might be happening here. There might be some writing, letter writing or things like that we've been doing this year. But though it will be someone's it will be their planning area will be the centers. And so you'll always, the classrooms will be pretty aligned along what the centers will be. And so it's not something you have to feel like you always have to plan by yourself. This will be something that we'll collaborate on and we'll all plan together. And then you can always use your classroom library. So you'll have a library of books in your classroom that students can choose to read. And I will say, honestly, this is an area I think will be a big area for growth for us next year because kids got really excited about reading the books. I think we're going to continue to figure out ways, how can we still hold them accountable and see what they're doing as they're reading the books. So that's something we'll think about going into next year. And then one other component we have for readers, for the literacy component is the Readers Workshop. And so this is where you get this is where the real teacher, whole class instruction happens. So whatever the skill is that students are learning for that day, this is where the teacher models it for the students. This is where the students practice it. And this is where students get to go off and do a little bit on their own with some feedback from the teacher. So if you're familiar with Readers and Writers Workshop at all, Lucy Calkins, all that fun stuff, this is where we really see that starting to play out. And this is where you can really target whatever the whole class instruction is going to be for the day. So even though students might be receiving something different in their guided reading groups, depending on where their level is, there is something that all students will be learning and practicing in their reading. So, yeah. And then one and last component is kind of the Writers Workshop. So this goes along with Readers Workshop. We have a new curriculum that will be rolling out next year for all of KIPP called KIPP Wheatley. And this is through a lot of research that the KIPP Foundation has done. And these units are all centered around different themes. So there might be an America theme. There might be, I'm trying to remember what some of the other ones are. Continents.
Weather.
Yeah.
Horses.
This is where we really start to see the alignment stuff happen. So what they're going to be writing in the Writers Workshop will be directly aligned to what they're going to be practicing in their text study block, which I'll talk to you about in just a second. And it's also something we'll be following up with a lot with our vocabulary and other components. But with Writers Workshops, very similar to Readers Workshop, you're modeling the writing process for them, or you're modeling how you go about writing something. They're practicing going through that by themselves, and then you're giving them feedback through conferencing and through small group instruction with them. And so I think next week when we do our last session, I might bring in, because finally some of our last writing projects will be finished, I'll bring in some of the finished products so you can kind of see, especially those of you going into first grade next year, you can kind of see where are our kids at as they're leaving off the year. But there's some pretty funny ones that I hope you can see. But there's lots of great stuff that happens here. I love Writers Workshop. And then the last part is text study. So this will be something that's new for us next year, but it's something that kind of plays into that KIPP Wheatley curriculum. And this is where students are reading texts that are not at their independent level and not at it's at the very high instructional level. And what this does is if it's a system where students are exposed to the same text multiple times and they're forced to do close reading basically, which is where you're reading a text multiple times looking for different parts of that text, and then you're answering text dependent questions where you have to use evidence to support your answers. And so this year we haven't really done a lot of that. We've done a lot of just more of the Readers Workshop, more of the read aloud type stuff. And so this will be a big push for our kids next year, but I really think it's going to be, especially when you look at the Common Core and what they expect from students around using evidence, and especially with nonfiction texts, I think this is exactly where we need to go. So it really gives students a chance in a very supportive environment to really grapple with a text that's really hard for them. And they have to really just dive in, look at the words, look at the way the author is saying different things to be able to pull out their thinking. And then also not just saying something, but using evidence from the text to support whatever they think their answer is. So this will be happening every day during the week as well. And this will tie directly, like I said, into the writing that we do. So a lot of their writing will be focused on the same themes or the same topics that the close reading and text study will be doing. And then one final thing that we're just going to throw in there just for fun is handwriting. So I think one of our big reflections this year is our kids are great writers and they have great ideas, but their handwriting kind of sucks. There's just a lot of things where it's I know what you're trying to say, or I feel like I need my PhD in deciphering. But But this is definitely something we want to focus on going into next year. And I think we had this idea at the beginning of the year to kind of focus on this, and it kind of fell by the wayside just because we have so much packed into our day. It's hard to fit it in. But this is where we've been brainstorming different ways of how we can start to incorporate handwriting throughout. So it's not going to necessarily be its own block during the day, but you're going to see a lot of handwriting practice happening during things like morning work. So if students are coming in and they're early, they're the first ones coming into the room, there might be some handwriting practice they can do. Maybe it's writing their name, relations, or handwriting station that kids are practicing with. So we want to be very purposeful around finding ways to do this. And if you have found good ways as a teacher, if your experience, or if you've seen things with maybe your own children or something where you've seen handwriting be really successful, we would love to hear those ideas too. This is something new that we're thinking about. Okay, that was a lot. So I'm going to give you a second here just to kind of think which of these approaches or which of these components maybe you've heard of before or maybe you've used. If so, what worked for you? And then what are some things that you might think we need to be aware of as we're starting to put all these things together, especially if you have the experience? What are some things we should be thinking about that maybe we haven't been so far in terms of that? So just take a couple minutes if you want to look back through. This is also a great time if you just have certain questions about different components. I know it was like a really like high level summary of each of these. So if you had some more specific questions, we can try to answer them. So just take a couple minutes, breathe. I'm going to breathe so I can stop talking, and then just look through it. You know,
Yes. Thank you.
take about 30 more seconds. Okay, for those of you who are teachers, I would love to hear if you're familiar with any of these components already in your classroom as a teacher.
I wrote down message time. I do that on a daily basis. Some people like to tease me because every night before I leave, my morning message has to be up. So we practice that. Something like you were saying, I put sight words in there, but they have to find, a question at the end of the day.
You make fun of her.
I'm not, I don't make
So
fun
on
of
the
her.
floor, right?
She sits on her floor with a ruler and writes it so perfectly that I can't handle it.
Perfectionist.
No, not really. Senior literacy, different type of centers that they grow into. Choice reading, my kids are really into different books, so I pick them out at the library, bring them in new books every couple of weeks. We call it Dear Time. drop everything and read. Writer's journals, their morning work is usually done in that, and the journal that they have that they keep in their desk. And it's not for drawing, it's not for extracurricular cutting. So that's where we do a lot of our writing at. Then they'll be able to take those home at the end of the year to review them for summer. And then just really move on handwriting.
I guess with the tech study, I know that like in the video that I sent in, there was some of like my small group and my kids all, I don't facilitate a lot of what they're doing in their small group. They do most of like the lifting themselves because like if they have a question, I'll tell them like you need to ask like so-and-so or so-and-so, what do you think about this? So obviously it takes a lot to get them to that point. You just didn't start doing that one day. But that's how I think that they learn most. So I don't do a whole lot during that time. Like they'll start like making hand signals like I want to build upon so and so. They're like I would like a connection. I like disagree. I agree. And like with those hand signals, like they know that they have to be. They can't make the hand signals until that person's done talking because that means you're not thinking about what they're saying. But at that point, then they can say, I agree. And like they get excited about it. But now they agree and disagree with me all the time during like my whole group reading. I'm like, disagree with you. Hey, all right. And then with handwriting, I incorporate that like with their spelling words or sight words or vocabulary words. So that they're always like learning those letters correctly. It's easily implemented in their homework. And my kids get really excited about dry erase markers. So they only get to use those when you have really awesome handwriting.
Did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, we do some elements of literacy at my school, Research Workshop I'm really familiar with, and I love it, but the one drawback at my school was that we spend a lot of time on Reader's Workshop, a lot of time on word study and phonics, and so it's really hard to teach readers who struggle on really low-level text. So getting them to that point, incorporating nothing but Reader's Workshop has been difficult. So I'm excited to see the balance between Reader's Workshop teaching readers and then phonics teaching reading. So I'm really excited about having both of those influences together.
All right, we're going to play a quick game of Who Am I? So I'm going to just give you a quick clue really quick, and I want to see if you can figure out what part of the literacy day I described. What is that? That's One Direction, by the way, which is really sad and embarrassing. Anyway, okay. Okay. So during this component of the day, there are new words that are explicitly taught in different steps to students. And you think you know, touch your nose. Ooh, Elizabeth was first.
I'm always trying to see if I'm wrong.
What do you think?
Okay.
Good. Vocabulary where new words are explicitly
Just phrase it as in I am.
I am. Yeah. That's good practice. All right. During this component of the day, there are text-dependent questions that students must use evidence to answer, and it also involves close reading. Ooh, look at all these people touching me. I think it's your allergy. Joy, what do you think?
Why are they drinking?
Ooh, good guess. It's not big.
Yeah.
Although they might use some text, they might use evidence there too. But think about, especially the text-dependent part, where they ask about the text. Yes, you are text-dependent. Good job. All right, and the last one. And during this component, the teacher models a reading skill explicitly, and then students can practice with one another and get feedback from the teacher. Okay, go ahead.
Is it Reader's Workshop?
Good job. Very good. I'm so proud of you all. You did such a good job. All right. Good. All right, let's keep going. So that's literacy. Obviously, that's there's a lot of components. It's a huge part of our day. I know some of you are already going ahead and looking at the schedule. We'll get right to that in just a second so you can see just how much of our day it is. The second part then is math, which is our second big part. And there's basically just a few components that make up our math schedule. So we will always start our math with some math fluency practice and calendar math. So this is where students can practice counting by 5. This is where they can practice counting from 1 to 100. They practice looking at the calendar and being able to know the number of the day and being able to do addition and subtraction using the calendar and the months to help them, the days of the week. So this is just basically the kind of skill and kill and drill type stuff where they're practicing these things so it becomes rote memory for them. Anything you want to add around calendar math and math fluency?
No.
Okay. This also happens during math. We have rotations. So similar to literacy, we also will have a 3-part rotation that will happen during math time. Some students will be able to practice independently at centers, kind of similar to the literacy time. We also have a computer program called ST Math, where once again meets students on their level. It has a mascot named Gigi, which is a penguin, and basically every single level they have to help Gigi get from one side of the screen to the other, and they have to do different types of math things to be able to figure it out. The really cool thing I like about ST Math, and I'll talk more about it in a minute, is the fact that it never actually talks to the students. So they have to use like their own knowledge and just their own guessing and exploration to figure out what the answer is. And then we also have this remediation and database enrichment with the teacher. So depending on what our data is showing us, this is your chance to really target instruction with students on specific skills that they need. The kind of whole group component and also the application problems that we see is called Eureka Math. This is a curriculum that we have that we implemented this year in many ways. We're going to kind of switch some of the ways that we're doing it for next year. But basically, this is where they get most of their conceptual understanding and a lot of their problem-solving practice. And so during this time, they'll learn a lot of hands-on with manipulatives, how to solve problems. We do a lot with like number bonds and practicing taking 2 different parts of a number to come up with a whole parts of shapes and things like that. And so this is where you'll see this happen. And basically, it will include like a scripted lesson plan that you can follow and also to kind of tailor to make your own. And then also there'll be some time for some guided practice, which will happen as an entire group where you can go around and give feedback at the end. And it kind of also lets you know what you need to target in some of those enrichment groups that happen later. So like I mentioned with the individual practice, it's called ST Math. That's Delandre practicing with Gigi on the computer. They have little headphones that they can listen to along the way, but like I said, the only real sound it makes is a little ding if they get it right, or it'll make a sound if they get it wrong and they have to try again. But it's a lot of fun. That's Gigi. That's math. Is there one aspect that you're really excited about when you think about our math? So we have the whole group instruction with Eureka. We have the rotation model that happens where kids are at centers, or they're getting targeted instruction with you. And then we also have the SC Math with Gigi.
I really like the rotations.
Mm-hmm. What do you like about the rotation?
I like that it gives them a chance to get individual help as well as develop independently. I like that it's both incorporated.
And we found this year, like some schools don't incorporate rotations with math as much, but we found it has been very helpful. And like we've seen our results as we focus on that more, like go up even faster. Good. All right. Okay, other instructional components that we have. So we'll do science and social studies during the week. These will be rotating units. So you might have a science unit for 3 or 4 weeks, and you might go to a social studies unit and then come back. This will be planned by someone who's on staff. Lots of times this will be linked directly to what we're doing in Wheatley. So those thematic units that we have we have a unit on America and we're learning about the history, then the social studies obviously you might focus on that. Or if it's one on holidays, we might have some books on holidays. The social studies or science might, if it's the living animals, it might be going through the life cycle in science or something. So this will be for 20 minutes, 5 times a week. Basically follows your classic teaching model, I do, we do, you do, where the teacher's doing something, modeling something explicitly, students are practicing with it, and then they have some time to practice on their own. Or it might be a lab if they're doing some type of science experiment. So we've gotten to grow seeds this year and watch that happen. We've gotten to practice recycling. We had an Earth Day parade this year, which I wanted to put up a picture, but I forgot, which is fun. So they got to pick out stuff they've recycled or reused, and they make costumes out of it, and we had a parade. So it's a lot of fun. Really happy. Next year, we're also going to have enrichment classes. This will look a little bit different depending on what grade level you'll be in, kindergarten or first. But either way, it'll be 2 days a week for 45 minutes. This is going to be teacher-created stuff. So depending on what we'll flesh out more of the details of this as it goes on. But these are some of the areas that big buckets we've been kind of thinking of so far. And obviously, if you are someone who is lucky enough to have enrichment to teach extra, you can think about what's your passion and what's something that you might want to, if you're really into art, or if you really like music, or if you really want to do some dance move, or yoga or something like that with the kids. That's definitely something we could be open to. But that will happen 2 days a week for each grade level. It'll just be different days depending on where we're at. This will also be the time where different teachers will be able to step out for prep time and collaboration time too. So that's why it's not every day, and that's why it rotates. And then I already talked to you guys last time when we talked about student culture, about our character development, and this will show up many times throughout our day. I just want to highlight for you some of the different times where we'll see character development happening. This is where we'll focus on a different core value or a specific behavior trait or something like that we're doing every week, and we're reinforcing that throughout the entire day and throughout the entire week. We'll have a morning meeting every day to start off our day in your classroom, which will kind of be your way of setting up the day, talking with the students. Okay, today we're really going to focus on showing love to our teammates. So one thing we're going to practice when we show love is saying please and thank you to each other. So I'm listening today for please and thank you, and every time I hear you say that, you get whatever. And so and then we're just reinforcing that. And then also you have some time for reflection at the end of the day, which will be like your closing circle. So how do we do today? Who do you want to shout out for doing a really good job in this class? And then we will also have some time for some whole school or grade level, which we call team and family time on Fridays. And so that's a really cool time where the whole grade level gets to get together. We get to celebrate people in the class who did a really good job. We get to play fun games together. We get to dance. We just get to really get that bond as a team and a family. So that happens every Friday. I think towards the beginning of the day, we'll probably do that. And so what we focus on, like I said, character strengths, our core values, the emotional intelligence, stuff we were talking about. And so there'll be lots of different things you'll get to do. You'll get to develop routines like chants and songs with your class. They'll get to show them off to each other. We have like some very strong college pride right now in our different classes. So I know like Howard, for example, has different songs and chants every time. So they always got to show everybody else up with everything they have, which they usually do, but not all the time. So you can kind of bring your creativity there too, and the kids get really into it. I just want to touch on intervention really quickly. We do have someone on staff who is our manager of student support. She does intervention several times during the week, but she is not the only level of intervention that we have here at the school. Like a lot of that differentiation that I talked to you about throughout the day that we have through centers and different things, like is a way to intervene. So I just thought this quote was really like, you don't need a special intervention time to intervene. Like the way our schedule is set up, we're doing that differentiated in intervention instruction all the time. Especially in kindergarten where you're going to have 2 teachers in the room all the time, like intervention can be happening during phonics, during all of those different things. And then also with first grade, there'll be times during the day where there is a second person pushing in to do rotations and things with you, so you won't be by yourself during those times. So that's another time where that differentiation will happen. She will be doing some pull-out services and some support services. You saw Kelsey as she came in. So she does do pull-out groups for literacy and for math several times a week. She also does push-in services for some of our kids too, if it's just like more of a one-on-one thing that they need. And then, like I mentioned with phonics and different things, we do differentiated groups across the school also, which is something new we're trying for next year. So definitely you'll see different forms of intervention happening with our students, but we try to make it as least intrusive as possible for our kids. Like we want to try to meet them with where they are and still keeping them in the classroom and with their peers as much as possible and still learning. And there's all the other fun stuff. So we do serve food here as well, which is good. So we do have a breakfast. We have a lunch. We also have a snack for our students that they get afterwards. I forgot to put that on here. And then students will also get recess every day for 20 minutes. That will usually happen either right before or after their lunch or right around their nap time. So usually after they get up from nap, they might go to their recess real quick. If weather permits, it will be outside. But we do have some time as well that can be inside. So we have a couple courtyards that were developed this year, which the kids really like to go. There's a sandbox, there's some chalkboards and things they can play on. And then we also have a large gym upstairs that kids can play in too. And then if they're in kindergarten, they get a little nap afterwards. They get 30 minutes of rest after lunchtime to kind of recharge. Sometimes I need more. Sometimes I need more than a 30-minute nap.
We're in the fun part of the year right now where first grade doesn't get naps, so that we're starting to wean them off.
Yeah, so they've stopped getting naps.
Some of them are
A little cranky. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff, right? So we have a huge packed schedule that we have that we obviously are jam-packed during the day. So what do you think some of the implications are going to be for us as staff members, the fact that we have all of these different components of our day that we're doing every day? And then what do you think could be some possible implications for our kids too, the fact that they have all of these things? Just think about that for a minute and just kind of share out what are some things that we have to be consciously thinking of with the fact that we have this huge jam-packed schedule every day in our kids. All right, what are some things we need to be thinking about as teachers and also for our students? What are going to be some of the implications of the fact that we have this jam-packed schedule?
So we need to stay on task, make sure we stay on task, meet the need of each student. And realize that some students can get overwhelmed with so much going on.
Yeah. When we have an extended school day, right, we go longer than the average school does. So even, I mean, our kindergartners might not know any different, but some of our first graders who might be coming from another school, they might be shocked at the fact that we're here from 8 to 4 every single day. So just stamina-wise, it's going to be a lot for them. It's going to be a lot for us too, right? I also think about the fact that we're trying something really cool next year with phonics, with these cross-classroom groupings. That for us as teachers, that means we have to stay on our schedule, right? Because even if one teacher gets off by just a few minutes and we're supposed to be starting these rotations, it can really mess up the whole thing. And so I think one thing for us going into next year is like making sure that we're sticking to our time schedule that we have, and that's being respectful of ourselves, but also of the other people and the other teachers as well. Yes.
I have one more that I think of just with the amount of what's going on, just remembering that learning is fun. It needs to be fun for our students to stay engaged. So within every single academic component, how are we ensuring that it is a joyful lesson that we're investing in, that they want to be learning what they're learning for that particular component of the day, and we're celebrating all of the great work that we're seeing and effort that we're seeing from kids, that joy is kind of infused purposefully throughout the entire day as well.
Yep. Yeah. Hopefully they're happy while they're here, so that makes your job happier when they're happy.
I thought about too, like the reality is 8 to 4 can seem like a long day, but realistically 8 hours flies by once you get into kind of the swing of things. So really thinking about, it's up to us to intentionally maximize every minute, and then also be aligned to have a really strong start of the year, because I think the schedule itself doesn't take into account like kids have off days, and we really have to like make sure we're setting the strong start for how we do school, so that then we don't have to teach that later on in the year.
Yep. Yeah, strong start is super important. Okay, the last component here I just want to talk about very briefly is just some of the support that you can expect as you are beginning this journey as a teacher here at our school. Because I know today is a session where we're just throwing a lot of information at you, and it can seem really overwhelming. Like you get like a 14-page packet over, you're like, wow, like this is a lot. But I do want you to just know right off the bat, like the support that you're going to get is going to starts today, and it's going to go all the way through up to the first day of school and beyond. So I just want to kind of map out for you some of the things you can be looking forward to as we kind of continue our onboarding journey, and then as we do our summer onboarding with the whole staff. So within the next few weeks here, you're going to actually start to find out what some of your planning assignments will be for the upcoming year. So for those of you who have taught before, or even those of you who are like, you can start to get your brain around, okay, this is the thing that I'm going to be responsible for. We break up those different components of our day so that different people are responsible for different parts. And that way you can kind of know going into the year, this is my thing. You're also going to get some individual check-ins. So Ellen, Brittany, myself, somebody's going to be reaching out to you here towards the end just to see, kind of gauge your current level of comfort with whatever it is that you've been assigned, and then figure out what are some things we can kind of fill in the gaps for you over this beginning part of the summer, whether it's reading some professional text, whether it's seeing a video of something in action that we can show you, maybe it's showing you some student work or some lesson plans from the previous year, just so you can kind of start to wrap your brain around it. We're going to check in with you to figure out how we can best support you there. And so that's also access to some of those resources that we can start to open up. And then as we start to come back as a staff in July, we will start to do more in-depth training over each component of the day. So like I said here, like today's very high level. It's just a quick overview of what each of the components are. We're going to really get into more depth around what each part looks like, actually have some teachers model it. We'll go through lesson plans, the planning part of it so you can see it. And then you'll actually get some time to start planning out those long-term plans, those unit plans of what it's going to look like for the year. And then we'll actually get some time during summer onboarding to actually practice some of this execution. So actually getting up, it's kind of nerve-wracking sometimes, but we love feedback around here, in case you can't tell. So like we love to get that practice up in front of our peers, get some of that feedback so that that execution can be great when it's actually in front of kids for the first time. So those are some things we'll be doing over the summer to kind of help you, supporting you as you're getting familiar with all the different components. The way it will work kind of in our school, once the school year starting, is you'll have that planning for the different academic components. It will be divided among the staff. And then before it's actually rolled out and taught, we will actually have different structures in place where you will be able to present your plans and get feedback from your peers around things that can be changed. So it might be modeling a part of your lesson that you're really stuck on, or you want some feedback on, and that those people will tell you about that. It might be something that might be changing for the upcoming week, and you want to model that for the other teachers so they know exactly what that is. Maybe there's a special song you want to teach them around whatever it is, and you want to make sure everyone sings that song the right way so they know what it is. It's a chance for you to ask questions and also for your peers to ask questions too. The cool thing about this is this will be happening during the day. So you're going to have this collaboration time with your peers that's already set up into our schedule. And we'll be talking more about that later. So this is actually a component we get to meet with teachers during the day to talk about it and make those changes right away. So it's not an extra thing you have to worry about planning late at night sometime and trying to get everyone together at Panera or something to talk about it. Like, this is something you can do during the day. And then obviously you make those adjustments based on the feedback, and then we get ready to execute it the following week. So that's kind of how things will be going in terms of planning for next year. And like I already mentioned, we have a ton of support here that will happen. We have curricular resources that have been bought that are actually like text things that you can look through. Our guided reading library, there's stuff through KIPP and KIPP Weekly. There's also, you'll have access to our KIPP network. So you'll have all of these hundreds of teachers who have teacher created plans that you can use to kind of help you as you're developing your own. You're also going to be getting support and feedback from whoever your manager is. So there'll be a planning support person who will be helping you with your plans throughout the course of the year, especially at first as you're kind of getting things under your belt. And then we also do a lot of co-planning here. So like I said, there's that time built in during the day where you can kind of bounce ideas off of your counterparts and kind of see what they think to help you. Obviously with co-teaching, there's going to be a ton of different approaches that we can use here. So when we talk about that collaboration part of that will be in the classroom as well. So we'll be talking as well. I just want to preview for you really quickly. I actually wanted you to just have that on your slides so you can look at that later. But these are some of the different co-teaching models we might use this year in different classrooms, especially with the kindergarten. Okay, I'm going to stop talking here at the end. Here's what I want you to do towards the end. There's a schedule that if you want to take a couple minutes just to glance through really fast, just so you can kind of see where all these different components fit together. Glance through it really quickly, and then just kind of ending today with this quick reflection time. So what are 3 things we need to do really well next year in order to meet our academic goals? What 2 academic components of the day are you like most interested in possibly planning or maybe leading? Why would you might be interested in those? And then what is maybe 1 question or concern you might still have? Okay. Go ahead and look through this first, and you can kind of. Sorry, kindergarten is on the left side first here.
And for kindergarten teachers, you can kind of see where those post-planning times are built in. That's what's right to the right of that.
And this is the draft schedule, so it may not 100%. We do an execution next year, that's kind of where we are right now.
Do all students eat breakfast and lunch here? Everybody?
Yeah, with universal, so our.
Yeah.
And so certificates.
All right, I know we were over, so I don't want to take any more of your time. I apologize for being so late today. So if you didn't get everything finished, it's perfectly fine. I'm actually on the survey you're going to be getting later. It'll have a place for like any questions or concerns that you might still have. So feel free, especially to add that on there, so we can try to make sure we answer those questions the next time. But if you just want to share one of the things, so either one of the things that you think we need to do really well next year to meet our academic goals, or one of the things that maybe you're interested in planning or leading. I think either one of those would be really interesting here. So just pick one of those and just share it out really fast to close out today.
I was really interested in the science and social studies lessons.
I'm interested in that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was you shared with, sorry.
You can either share one thing from the first question or one from the second.
I was gonna say the first, so something, so I said, the things that we need to do really well, and like a strong start, strong procedures, like these things have to be in place in order for all of this to happen.
Yeah.
I think like also verbalizing consistently, like reminding them why we do this, and that's also really helpful for the teacher as well.
Some things that I said before, in order to meet our academic goals, is to just plan and be prepared from day to day, and knowing our student levels, just creating a positive environment.
Wow. I forgot what's on this later.
Sorry, Will.
All right, well, thank you very much for staying longer today. I apologize that took more than we did. Like I said, feel free to put any questions or concerns you have on the survey that you'll be getting, and then our final onboarding session will be happening on June 8th, which is a week and a half, right? Yes, so on Monday, June 8th. That'll be the first day after school's out, yes. We'll be very, might come casual. we can have a casual day. And that one's a little bit later too. I think it starts at 6:30. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. Tonight was supposed to be the first day of, our summer thing started.
June 21st.
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
I had two different dates written down, I was like, I should probably.
I think it's June 21st. Or July 21st.
July 21st.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I meant July 21st.
Oh, that's.
Hopefully you knew what I meant.
That's right.
Unless you wanna come in my car.
I mean, you're more than welcome to come in here.
We'll be here, I guess.
Oh, we'll be here. Nobody else.
Happy birthday tomorrow.
Thank you. Happy birthday to you.
Yes, happy birthday to you.
I stretched it out a week, it was as long as I could
Was
get
it?
out of it, yeah.
Mine's going into the weekend, so I'm like Thursday.
I show you.
I showed my boys and they were like, that is so cute. She thinks her FaceTiming. And I was like,
She's not in there.
yeah.
Super cute.
I had four.
Well, and that's
So 547
main number.
Thanks for making it. Sorry all that happened. That's always the worst when you feel like you just don't know what's
I was
happening.
driving from Muncie and I was like, coming out of class, it's fine.
We're going up there tomorrow for a field trip. We're going to Ball
I
State,
heard,
so
that's exciting.
if you want to just randomly tag along.
Yeah, what time is it? It's not possible, but I only have like 2
We are leaving right after breakfast. I think we get up there. We leave
Yeah.
like 8:30. So we get there around 10.
hours.
Ellen, where are we starting our Ball State tour? Do you remember?
What?
Where are we starting our Ball State tour?
Center with the circular guy, hold on. Yeah, we're fine.
Okay, so that's probably the students. Yeah.
Are the kindergartners going? Wow, that's gonna be awesome.
So,
The LA Pittenger
Student Center, yeah.
And then we're doing a tour, and then we're getting a step show from Alphas and Kappas, and it's by Beta Sigma, but I don't think it's supposed to be Beta Sigma. Yeah, I think that's a typo.
Yeah, and so I think we'll eat lunch. We'll probably do like a picnic out there by the bell tower and everything.
Like one every year.
Well, for colleges,
Yeah.
we'll go to one every year. So
We did that in my high school. My high school I went to, and so my whole went to 2 a year, like starting freshman year.
see ya. That's pretty cool. I think they'll go to more too. And like in middle school, we're going to maybe 2. Or sometimes they'll do an end of the year trip. Where we'll go to like Atlanta or somewhere.
That's what I know, right? And then
Don't
my
even
daughter's
take
like,
it up that I'm so far away.
she graduates Friday.
Ellen.
Okay, well, I think the questions got answered tonight. Yeah, I'm like,
I didn't get it in
but I was waiting for
I
it.
know, I said,
I said, what happened?
So it won't be long.
Okay. Thank you, okay.
So
Let me get up and go. It's
we're
7:40.
getting here, eating, gotta go to bus. We're gonna try to leave here by like 8:40 at the latest.
Yo.
And we'll get to campus at like 10 something, and then we're leaving by like 12:15. So we're really only gonna be there like
For a couple of
half an hour. A very
Okay, I don't wanna get lost. I'll see you guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Yeah.
So you guys have a good evening and bye tomorrow.
Enjoy your package. It's gonna be.
Yes, thank you. I'm so happy to get mail and you. It's so exciting.
Yeah.
I would have loved to join you guys tomorrow, but I didn't know that you were still gonna do it, to go to Ball State. And then my baby girl's been on the school for her grades.
We gotta go to that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I have to, yes, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah, congratulations.
I will.
She doesn't know us yet, but
Yeah.
She
But she
doesn't,
will.
but she's in all honors classes and she's college straight A's.
And then my oldest child is graduating from high school on
she
Friday.
needs to like come be like a big sister mentor for our kids.
She would love it. Which one?
Either one. Talk about college. Talk about yeah.
No, seriously,
Okay.
seriously.
Yeah.
We could have.
Are you serious? 'Cause she would love it. They
Yeah.
both would love it.
Yeah.
They actually want to come and help me decorate the class and all that good stuff.
I think I see that too, but then also,
When would you meet them?
if we'd be able to do it this year.
Well, no,
like, for next year. I don't know. Did they have like breaks from school where it could work, where it's like they just come for a day and help out, and then maybe we just schedule like that during morning meeting time is like ask questions about how like in high school is in college, how do you get those grades?
Okay. Yeah. I would definitely tell them